it's showing and all it's revealing about WNBA history and the players that play in the WNBA, and unfortunately women's athletics in general, is that there's just a lot of jealousy and a lot of resentment for no reason whatsoever. And so I'm going to prove to you how good Caitlin Clark really is compared to everyone else that's ever played the WNBA. If you're not paying attention to Caitlin Clark right now, then stop and pay attention to this video. Now cue the intro.
Sports show every Friday, hot take, where's the market, behind the scenes from the car shows to the streets. There's only one show, there's only one show I wanna watch, EDI Sports Show every Friday.
Welcome back to EDI Sports Show. This week we're going to take a closer look at what Caitlin Clark is not only doing in the WNBA, but the impact she is having on the entire sports landscape as well as the sports card hobby. And if you're not paying attention to what Caitlin Clark is doing right now, you must be living under a rock.
What's this? What, have you been living under a rock?
Now I know what you're going to say. Everyone already knows about Caitlin Clark, but actually they don't.
What you talking about, was?
Let me prove my point. If everybody already knew about Caitlin Clark, then why does her X account only have 400,000 subscribers? And her Instagram account has 2.6 million subscribers. Now let's compare those numbers to the US and world population count. Here is the US population clock. As you can see, there are 336 million people living in the United States right now, and there are over 8 billion people living on the planet today. Still think everyone knows about Caitlin Clark now? No. There are three things that I'm going to go over in this week's episode. One is what Caitlin Clark is doing in the WNBA. Two, what Caitlin Clark's impact is to sports in general. And three, what this means for the sports card hobby. But let's start with what Caitlin Clark is doing in the WNBA. Now, if you haven't been following this story, you're not going to believe this, because for some reason, the WNBA players all hate Caitlin Clark. Now, I don't get it, because to be honest with you, no one was watching the WNBA before Caitlin Clark. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of feminists and a lot of WNBA fans who are going to come after me, all 400 of them, and they're going to tell me, no, but the audience was growing and viewership was growing. Who cares? I mean, when you have no one watching you and then you have a little bit more than no one watching you, yes, you can claim growth, but is that really what you're talking about? Like, what's happened with Caitlin Clark is you have gone from irrelevant to relevant. Like, that's not about growth. That's called impact. And if you want to deny reality, then be my guest. But all it's showing and all it's revealing about WNBA history and the players that play in the WNBA, and unfortunately women's athletics in general, is that there's just a lot of jealousy and a lot of resentment for no reason whatsoever. And so I'm going to prove to you how good Caitlin Clark really is compared to everyone else that's ever played the WNBA. And all you need to know is this one stat. She is the only rookie in WNBA history to record a triple-double. Yes, she just did that last week. And that's the problem, is that she's the only rookie ever in WNBA history to record a triple-double. You've got to be kidding me. Victor Wembanyama had 2 triple-doubles this year in his rookie season. And he's supposed to be an unbelievable ball player. So if Caitlin Clark already has 1 triple-double and they're halfway through the season, could she potentially have a second triple-double and be just as good as Victor Wembanyama is in the NBA? I mean, we're talking about high-level talent. So that means that Sue Bird never had a triple-double. Cheryl Swoops never had a triple-double. Tarazi never had a triple-double. I mean, all of these great WNBA players never scored a triple-double in their rookie season. So what that's telling me is that Caitlin Clark is way better than all of these players combined. And they need to shut up. Otherwise, what's going to happen is they're going to get passed by the fans, who are ultimately deciding what's going on with the WNBA and in sports in general. Now, before I get into points 2 and 3, if you're new to this channel, hi, my name is Doc Schwartz, and I am your host of EDI Sports Show, and this is a sports and sports card variety channel. That means if you like sports and you like sports cards, then you should hit subscribe right now. Now, let's get into the second point. What is Caitlin Clark doing to sports in general? And this is why you need to pay attention. Because Caitlin Clark is doing something that the feminists could never do. And what that is actually getting the attention of every single little girl in America to actually care about sports. Now, I know that may not sound like a monumental thing, but this is huge.
It's huge.
And it's actually bad news for both Major League Baseball and the NFL. Because what's going to happen as Caitlin Clark's stardom kind of grows is that viewership of the WNBA is also going to grow. And what's going to suffer is baseball. Because if you can watch Caitlin Clark play a game while there's a baseball game on another network, which one are you going to choose? And the answer is going to be Caitlin Clark. And here's the reason why. Because every little girl is going to be watching those games. And guess who's going to be watching right alongside them? Their dad. If you have the choice to watch Caitlin Clark in the WNBA or a baseball game on another network, it's an easy choice. You're going to watch Caitlin Clark. It's a no-brainer. Caitlin Clark is at the beginning of mega stardom. And if you haven't heard, then that's why you should subscribe to this channel. Because Caitlin Clark is on the precipice of becoming the Taylor Swift of sports. This is huge. And if you weren't aware of it before, now you're aware of it. And you need to act accordingly. Caitlin Clark is changing the landscape of sports, which means that not only will the WNBA be broadcast everywhere, but attendance is going to reflect that as well. And if you're at a WNBA game, guess where you can't be? You can't be watching other sports on television, and you certainly can't be going to these other sports. Caitlin Clark is really going to suck the attention away from every other sport, and we're only at the beginning, which means that you need to pay attention to this right now. Now, what does all of this matter for the sports card hobby? Because, okay, so what? You know, Caitlin Clark has given 400% more attention to the WNBA than any other player in the history of that league. But more importantly, she's way more culturally important than Michael Jordan ever was, than Muhammad Ali ever was. Caitlin Clark is starting a revolution of little girls caring about sports, which means that they're now going to enter into the sports card hobby. I know. Men have been asking for decades, how come more women can't get involved in sports cards? Well, guess what, folks? It's happening. As little girls are watching Caitlin Clark play basketball, they're also starting to collect her cards. And what that means is they're going to start collecting more and more of not just her cards, but of every other athlete in the WNBA. And maybe that will bleed over and cross over to the other traditional sports. But I want to make this very clear. The way little girls care about traditional sports is not the same as little boys and men. But there is one danger that you do need to be aware of, and that is there's only so much money to go around, and that's something that you need to pay attention to. So if you're looking at a wall at Target or a Walmart of all the cards that you can buy, then you have, on the one hand, you have a $20 box for Pokemon, a $15 box for traditional sports, or a $10 box for WNBA. Guess where that money's going to go? It's going to go to the $10 box for the WNBA, and no one's going to buy sports cards anymore. And that's going to be the biggest danger, because Pokemon is where all the little boys are, and then the WNBA is going to be where all the little girls are. And guess who's left holding the bag in the middle? That's right, traditional sports. So while you're pouring hard-earned dollars into your PC, it's not going to be worth as much in the future, because that's not where the eyeballs are. The eyeballs of the next generation are Pokemon and Caitlin Clark and the WNBA. And if you're not preparing yourself for that future, you're going to be holding a lot of stuff that's not worth as much money. And I've talked about this in last week's episode, Sales Psychology. And here's a comment that you should look at. So I'm going to give you a preview. Now I'm going to talk about this comment at the very end of this video in the viewer comments. And you should definitely not click away, because the viewer comment section is now becoming probably the best section of this entire show, because everything you guys say is awesome. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I have had some amazing, intelligent comments, and then I've also had some kind of eyebrow raisers like this comment. I don't know where they're coming from. Now it's time for Where's the Market? In this week's Where's the Market, I have something really important to talk about with you, and I don't see this on any other channel on YouTube, and so that's why I want to bring it up. And that's if you want to be a collector and you want to be in this hobby for a very long time, then it's not just about buying cards. You have to do the second piece, which is selling cards. And unfortunately, none of the YouTube influencers ever talk about selling cards. They just talk about what to buy, and they spend awful amounts of money, and I just don't see them ever getting any money back. So is that what the influencers are talking about? Is like just buy, 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 buy? Well, what about the sell, 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 sell side? Like, you have to be a collector, and a collector doesn't just spend all their money and get nothing back for it. What I decided to do is I made 2 videos. They will be dropping on YouTube within a week or 2. This is sort of a preview of some of them, and it's all about selling cards. Now, I recently sold a whole bunch of cards on Reddit, and if you want to find out how much I made, then go and watch those videos. Remember, you have to hit the subscribe button because they haven't been published yet to YouTube. But I wanted to make sure that in this week's Where's the Market that we're talking about selling cards, not just buying cards, because buying is easy. Selling is hard. And unfortunately, none of the YouTubers out there are talking about selling cards. I don't know about you, but if I'm going to have an addiction, I want to be addicted to selling cards, because getting money for your cards is really satisfying. I'll just put it this way. When I sold the lot of cards on Reddit and I got that payment in PayPal, it felt really good. Like, wow, I just made some money. My point being is that you should get addicted to selling cards. Forget about the buy side. You've bought plenty of cards. You don't need any more cards. What you need to start doing is selling the cards, because the minute you start selling your cards, you realize one important thing, which is what I've been talking about for the last several months on this channel, which is your cards are not worth what you think they're worth. And until you start selling cards, You think your cards are worth $1 million, except no one's going to pay $1 million for your cards. And that's when real value comes in. If you haven't watched last week's show, I highly recommend you go back and watch last week's show. I'm going to put a card up here because YouTube allows me to do that for last week's show. So if you haven't seen it, hit the card and go watch last week's show. What value means and then what people will pay for it. And I'm going to get into those comments at the end. Again, whole bunch of viewer comments. If you haven't been making viewer comments, please put your comments down. I don't care where you come from. Like literally, if you think that I'm the dumbest guy in the world, fine, put that down in a comment. If you have a question, put that down in the comment. If you agree with what I'm saying, put that down in the comment. You can ask and say whatever you want on this channel. I would hope that you do it in a respectful manner, but I can't even expect that, not in 2024 anymore. People are just disrespectful all over the place. I get that. I understand. But my point of doing this channel is to actually start the conversation. We need to have people telling the truth. We need real hobbyists, real collectors talking about real stuff. And that's what this channel is all about. So that's this week's Where's the Market? And let's get to behind the scenes. In last week's behind the scenes, I showed you a little about my personal collection and sort of my key players that I'm going after. So we're talking about Gary Carter, we're talking about Pierre LaRouche, we're talking about Thurman Munson, and some other cool players that I like. Part of my philosophy is going after key players, again, that are important to me, that I care about. But then also there's an overall strategy, and that's what I wanted to actually go over in this week's episode. What's my overall strategy? And in order to understand that, you need to know a little bit more about me, because this is what's going to make your personal collection meaningful to you. Your collection should be an expression of who you are. That's what makes it a personal collection. So for me, I am a historian. That's what I like. I've always gravitated to history. I actually wrote a thesis on basically the beginning of the World Series, like how it started. So the first World Series was in 1903, and you have John Brush from the New York Giants. And I did a lot of research. I actually wanted to be a baseball historian when I was in college. That was one of the jobs that I want to do. But trust me, I have so many ideas that I don't even know how to handle every day. Like my brain just keeps going, and I have to try to slow down and do things that make more sense. But history is key for me. And so one of the things that kind of got me into sports cards with my dad was this whole sense of sports cards have been around for a long time, and that fascinated me. So I want to show you some really old stuff that I have, and then I can kind of talk about the philosophy. So the first thing that I want to show you is this Fatima card. So this is a team card, all right? And so this is a team card, and this is from 1913, and this is called a T200, and this is the New York Nationals. Now, on this team, Christy Mathewson. So he is supposed to be basically, I guess, right there. Now, Christy Mathewson is a Hall of Famer. He is a GOAT in the old sense of the GOAT. Now, I want to show you another card. So this is another T20 card, T206, I believe. And this is also Christy Mathewson. Okay, so I've got a team card and an individual card for Mathewson. And so the reason that I kind of got into like sports cards was because it just sort of was like, wow, these are old, like really old. And so my philosophy with sports cards and with my personal collection is I want to tell a story about not just cards, not just baseball, but Americana. Like, what was America like way back then, and what does that mean for today? And so what I hope to do on YouTube with my personal collection, once I can curate it, because I still have way too many cards, but once I can curate a real PC, my hope is to make a full documentary series on sports cards, talking about the history and what it means for America. Because this is part of our history. Like, it's a real part of our history. This isn't made up. Now, what is it worth? That's a whole different story, and that's for other people to decide. My point is that there's cultural and historical relevance for these sports cards. And even in the modern stuff, there's relevance for it. The problem is that it's overprinted, which means that it's not as valuable as something like this. Now, there's also other cards that have significance, and one of them, and I've shown this one before, but one of them is this, the 1953 Pee Wee Reese card. Now, this is a portrait, which I think is awesome. Now, one of the things that's great about this card is there's a lithograph that's hanging in the Hall of Fame of this painting. So for me, this sports card is important because it's a painting. It's a historical painting that you get to collect. Like, if you go to any museum, you can get reprints of historical paintings. You can get those paintings reprinted for you for your home. Obviously, it's not worth what the original's worth, but that's the point. This is the same thing. This is art that I now can hold. Now, this one is graded. I am selling this one, but that's my point. I have another one that's ungraded, which is going into my PC. Now, I have another older card, and this is from 1951, and this is Joe DiMaggio. Again, this is the kind of thing that you can actually own in your PC. Again, I'm also selling this one. And then the last piece is actually a ticket. And this is a full ticket, which is very rare. I'm just going to say this. So this is a full ticket. This is the Jimmy Valvano Final Four game. So again, if you go back in history, so the Jimmy V Foundation, Jimmy Valvano, he coached North Carolina State, and they actually won. They were the Cinderella story. They are the reason why March Madness is what it is, because North Carolina State should never have won a national championship, but they were the Cinderella story that went through the tournament to win a national championship. And this is the Final Four game. And so my point being is, so this is a full ticket. Again, this is also for sale. This is a full ticket. It's unheard of to have a full ticket from that game. So what I hope to do with my collection, and once I fully curate it, is I would like to be able to use these cards to tell a documentary story about not just sports cards, but American history as well. Like, go from the early 1900s, or if I can find a card from the 1800s, that would be amazing. I have never ever seen a card from the 1800s personally, and I would love to be able to own one in my collection. And then go from the 1900s to the 1910s to the 1920s and 30s, 40s, 50s, all the way to modern society, and really show how things have changed, as well as what does it mean culturally to American history? What does it mean to us as collectors? Now, I'm not that old, which again, these cards are way older than me. Like, these cards are older than me. I don't know if kids are watching this understanding that when you're looking at like these cards, like especially like this one's from 1953. So, I mean, that's different. Like this one is from 1906, 1907. So, I mean, that's older than everybody that's alive today. But this one's from 1953. And that's way older than me. And for kids that are watching, I mean, can you even imagine what that means? Like, this is from 1953. It's from 1953. And I want people to understand that and take the time to kind of just think about that. This is from 1953. Life was very different in 1953 than in 2024. Life is very different. There was basically, the television had just come out. Everything was on radio. Telephones were stuck to a wall. I mean, there was no cell phones, there was no internet, there was no, basically TV, there was no streaming, there was like, everything was different. Everything. And so my hope is that by doing a personal collection and with YouTube, because I think video is amazing, I hope that I can create a documentary about the history of sports cards in addition to Americana and American history. And that's kind of what I want to do. So I want to thank you for coming with me into behind the scenes, my personal collection, my philosophy and my strategy. For you, what that means is you need to understand you better. I love history. Therefore, these cards speak to me from a historical perspective. And that's why I'm going to keep certain ones and let other ones go. I don't need all of these cards. Like, here's a whole bunch of Roger Clemens rookie cards. I don't know how many there are. There's probably like 8 of them in here. I don't need them. Why do I need them? And that's the point. It doesn't fit my philosophy. And this is the point, is maybe I have, for the era, for the 80s, maybe I have certain cards for players and go, okay, this is what's telling the story of the 80s. Like, who are the most important players? Now, Wade Boggs is an important player. Now, this is also an important card because this was the first major card that I had ever pulled from a pack. Now, obviously, I didn't pull all of these from a pack. I got them, I don't know, from bulk deals. But, I pulled a Wade Boggs rookie in 1983 from a pack. And so I have one in my collection because it's the first card I ever pulled. And that's important for me. It may not be important for you, but I don't need this card, and I don't need this card, and I don't need this card, and I don't need this card. And that's my point, is I don't need these cards. What I want you to do with your collection is start curating. Start putting it down. Like, okay, I'm not going to keep this stuff because I don't know why I even want it. I owned it. I don't need it anymore. I'm going to sell it. And I want you to go watch the 2 selling videos. Again, hit the subscribe button because they're not out yet. They will be coming out in the next week or so. So hit the subscribe button so you can watch them. But I want you to watch those selling videos because I want you to start making money off your collection. I want you to start selling off your hoard. Get rid of your cards now. Don't wait. Do not wait. Now is the perfect time to sell. And if you're like, well, but the market's down. Yes, it's down. It doesn't matter. Selling is selling. If you put things in value, if you put value together, you will be able to sell your cards. Yes, you're going to lose money on it. Yeah, from what you paid for it. Yes, you're always going to lose money from what you paid. I don't know how else to tell that to you. That's the honest truth. You're going to lose money most of the time when you buy cards. That's how it works. It's called a collection for a reason. You're paying more than the cards are worth. Because over time, inflation will eat away at your collection. These do not appreciate at the level they need to appreciate in order for this to be a valuable commodity. Like, this is not an asset. There are certain cards that can be used as assets because they have a certain amount of value, but these will not appreciate. They will not appreciate. This card is worth about $750. You know what it'll be worth in 10 to 20 years? Closer to $1,200. That's not appreciation. In fact, that's losing money on inflation. It's just not going to be worth that much. It's just not going to be worth that much. Now, $1,000 is nothing. I'm not saying that's nothing. Like seriously, like $750 for this is a lot of money. But you're just not going to get the return that you think you're going to get. There are much better ways to invest money. This is not an investment. This is a collection. And you are paying good money for these cards, but I want you to understand that the hope is, this is the hope, is that it retains its value. That's the best thing. If these cards retain their value, then it's worthwhile. And that's my point, is these cards have been, over the last 100 years, been able to retain value. That's why the sports card hobby and the collections that you do are valuable, because they don't go to zero most of the time. Now, there are cards that go to zero. I'm just going to say this. I don't know. I don't know if I have any cards that will go to zero. None right here. I have a whole bunch of stuff here, and I don't have anything that's gone to zero. But some of the junk wax stuff, some of the junk slab stuff is going to go to zero. Like some of it will. Some of it's going to be completely worthless, that you're never going to even be able to give it away. And that's the danger that you need to be aware of, is what is actually going to retain value and what is not. All right, that's behind the scenes. I want to thank you. Let's get to the viewer comments. You are not going to want to miss the viewer comments. And like I said, this has become the best part of the show. So you guys have contributed to this. This is awesome. Let's get to your viewer comments. We have a lot of comments this week, and I want to thank everybody for making a comment. Again, like I said, you can make a good comment, a bad comment, whatever it is that you want to express, put it down on this channel, because I am listening. So let's get to the first comment that I showed you at the very beginning of this episode. So here it is. So this is from Magic Banding, and what he says is, I disagree with your foundational point. The card is worth whatever someone will pay for it. End of story. Now, this was on the video where I talk about, what cards are actually worth. And unfortunately, this is the problem. This is the mindset that I'm trying to get you guys to break free from. So at a fundamental level, yes, the card is worth what someone will pay for it, but how do you know what someone will pay for the card? Like this comment doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know if this person knows that it doesn't make any sense. So that's why I want to unpack it, because it's so key to the whole piece of the sports card hobby. Like, it's so key to collecting, is what is it worth? People are going to pay money for a card because of what's called perceived value. That's the key. If someone thinks a card is worth $3,000, they're going to give you $2,000. There's not going to be any argument. If you try to sell a card that's worth $2,000, here's an example of a black and white Nestle card. Now, these are rare, or rarer than the regular cards. They're not necessarily that rare. I think there were like 100,000 of these printed. 100,000, maybe less, but still 100,000 is not nothing. So there were, let's say, 100,000 of these printed. Okay, how much are they worth? Now, this card is actually worth around $50 right now. Yeah, it's worth $50. So if you know that it's worth $50, how much would you pay for it? Now, that's what Magic Banding doesn't seem to understand. It's worth what someone will pay for it. But what someone will pay for a card is based on perceived value. This card is worth $50. Therefore, what would you pay for a $50 card? Would you pay $30? Would you pay $40? Or would you only pay $25? Once you know what the perceived value is, that's how you can determine what someone will pay. But you have to know the value first. And this is the key for everybody watching this channel. You need to know the value before you can set your price. So you tell me, what is this card worth? This is a Wade Boggs rookie card from 1983. Put down in the comments what you think this card is worth, not what you would pay for it, what the perceived value of this card is. All right, and let's get to the second comment. This is from Josh, Connecticut, I guess, Josh CT, and he says, thanks to the algorithm, I came across your video and subscribed. It's nice to hear people talk honestly about the sports card market, so keep it up, man. Hey, this is what's amazing about YouTube, and that anybody can find me from the algorithm, and I am really leaning into the algorithm at this point to try to get more videos out to you. You can help by hitting the like button. That actually allows YouTube to know that you actually like the video. So if you're watching at this point, if you're watching the viewer comments, in fact, anytime you get to the viewer comment section, I want you to hit the like button. The first thing you do, just hit the like button and be like, yes, this is a video I love, and therefore YouTube will send it out to everyone that knows about sports cards. All right, so that's a great comment. I appreciate it. Let's get to John Sports Cards, and this is what he said. You can't compare auctions to buy it now. Auctions are never accurate to what the true value should be, and you also need to consider costs that are involved for the seller. eBay takes at least 13% plus promotional fees if those are placed on the item. Then you have to consider the cost for grading. I don't understand why no one in the buying side can understand this. Everyone's something for nothing. All right, John, you make a good point. I'm going to start with, you make a good point, but every one of your points doesn't matter. And that's the problem that I don't think that you're recognizing. There's two sides to the coin, right? So there's the buying side, and then there's the selling side, okay? So you either are looking for cards and you're buying, or you're selling cards and you're selling, okay? Those two camps do not see eye to eye. They will never see eye to eye. That's actually the whole point. And so what you need to understand when you're selling cards is you need to know the true value of the card. Forget about eBay fees, forget about shipping, forget about all the other stuff that you just mentioned. And I know that it's frustrating. Trust me, I understand that. I am selling cards just like you are, John. And I know that eBay just eats out of any money that you make, which is why I'm not selling on eBay anymore, and I'm selling at card shows, I'm selling on Reddit, I'm selling on other places. Like I will sell on Facebook Marketplace, although I don't really like Facebook Marketplace. I am looking for other places to sell. That's actually the reason why I started the Facebook group, Card Hoarder Nation, which you can join for free right here on this link. It's down in the description below. So that's why I created that, because you need other avenues to sell. Now, I'm going to make this very, very clear. I use PayPal goods and services. That is a 3% fee, not 13%. That's 3%. That's a whole different story. And the reason that I do that is because I am protected as a seller. I can send an invoice, which I have done. I send an invoice and the person pays it. They don't have to know any information about me other than my PayPal account. And then I ship out the cards. That is it. It's an easy and clean transaction. I don't like dealing with eBay. I don't like dealing with eBay sellers. I don't like the whole experience. eBay to me is a really bad marketplace. And I hope that someone in the sports card hobby will make a new website. I'm actually talking to a company that I think could be the next generation of selling online. And if you're interested, hit the like button, share this video with everybody you know, because again, the bigger that I get, the more I can help the hobby. Let's get to the second part of this. So when you're talking about selling cards, yes, the value is whatever it is. So let's look at this one because it's not worth all that much. So here you go. This is a Tim Raines rookie card. What do you think the value of this card is? Okay, so what do you think the value of the card is? And then tell me what you would price it at in the comments. So first, put what you think the value is, and then tell me what you would price it at. And we'll do this next week in the viewer comments based on your comments. We'll see what everyone has to say. All right, thanks John for that comment. Let's get to the next one. All right, this one is from Philly Joe, and I love this comment. Philly Joe is an OG follower, okay? So he's been with me from the very beginning, and I want to make this very clear. So he gets my sense of humor, and I love Philly Joe. And we even have this love-hate relationship. I wouldn't even say it's a hate, but we have a mutual understanding. I'm from New York, he's from Philly. I think all Philly sports is horrible, and he hates New York sports, but we get each other because we understand that being a fan is being a fan. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you root for one team over another. I can appreciate Philly Joe, even though I hate the Phillies and the Flyers and the Eagles. I hate them, but I don't hate Philly Joe. I think Philly Joe is awesome. And I have friends that are diehard Eagles fans. I love them. I just hate the Eagles. That's what sports is all about. You're supposed to hate the team, not the fans. Hate the team, not the fans. I wish people would get that. But all right, let's get to what Philly Joel has to say. All right, so I'm not a jerk. I take BIN and BO, so that's eBay speak for I think it's buy it now and best offer. So buy it now or best offer. The jerks are the buyers, and their ridiculous delusional offers always priced to sell. Thanks. All right. So this was on my last video, which I cut up from the earlier episode. So are eBay listings overpriced? And I was showing that eBay listings are about 30 to 40% overpriced. I mean, they're huge. Like, they're so far out of the realm. Now, I understand exactly what Philly Joe is saying because I used to list things on eBay myself, and I did sometimes I would get offers because I would put best offer up there, and sometimes I would get offers, but they were so lowball that it was crazy. Now, I try to price things appropriately. So for me, I'm like, okay, I know what the card is worth, and you're trying to give me pennies on the dollar. And I mean, that's fine. If that's what your strategy is on eBay, you're gonna offer nothing and hope to get somebody to say, okay, I'll take it. But I mean, that's certainly a strategy. I'm just gonna say that. If you're a seller and you get a lowball offer, you just need to decline it. Like, you don't need to make a comment, please. Sellers on eBay, listen to this public service announcement. You don't need to take their offer. You don't need to take their offer. Just say, no thank you, and walk away. No thank you, and walk away. eBay is a horrible place to sell. That's why you get the type of buyers you get on eBay, because eBay is a horrible place to sell. We need a sports card hobby marketplace. We need something just for us. We need a place that's just for sports cards. And I'm talking to a company that I think has the auction site of the future. And if you want to know more about it, put it down in the comments below. All right, let's get to the next one. This is from Robert Cremens, and he says there are some crazy prices on eBay, especially modern PSA 10s. It's like if you got a 10, you hit the jackpot or something, but those modern cards are so risky. Think about this, for 10 seconds. Of all the thousands of MLB players that have ever played, only 60 are first ballot Hall of Famers. 60. That is it. What are the odds your PSA 10 is going to be another one? And this is just baseball. All right, Robert, you are 100% correct, which is why I love the comment section of this show, because I get great comments like this. This is for the kids, and I know a lot of kids are not watching these videos, but if you're a parent, you need to make your kids sit down and show them this part of the video, okay? Kids, every one of your star players, every single one of them are stars right now, but they are not stars in the history of the game. In fact, very, very few of them are going to be considered GOATs. Very few. So what we're watching right now, if you want to look at football, there are two players that are potential GOATs. Two. You've got Patrick Mahomes and you've got Justin Jefferson. Two guys. Now, you could also maybe put Travis Kelce in there because he is lighting it up at the tight end spot, but he's a tight end. No one cares about tight ends in the history of the game. People do care about receivers. People do care about running backs. People do care about quarterbacks. Nobody really even cares about defense. Nobody cares about defense. Michael Strahan's the greatest linebacker to ever play the game, or defensive end. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Lawrence Taylor's the greatest linebacker. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about defense. They only care about offense. They only care about quarterbacks. They only care about running backs. They only care about wide receivers. So that's football. But you got two guys. That's it. Mahomes and Jefferson. Who else? So forget about Burrow. Forget about Jamar Chase. Forget about, Josh Allen. Forget about them. I understand where you're coming from. They're stars of today. They are legit stars. But nobody cares about Jim Kelly. Nobody cares about Dan Marino. That's my point. Nobody cares about these players. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that there's no fans for them. Again, people misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm talking overall market. I'm talking the sports card market. You're not going to get values from those players. They're not going to appreciate at the levels that you think they're going to appreciate. And also, just so everyone's aware, the only card that's not overpriced right now is Justin Jefferson cards. Mahomes cards are overpriced. Jefferson is the only one that has a trajectory going forward. That's it. Now, he got hurt. Maybe that's why his cards came down enough that they're actually at a normal level. So if you buy a Justin Jefferson card right now, you're paying basically what it's worth. If you buy a Mahomes card, you're overpaying. And you're going to only know that, again, if you have my level of experience. I've seen this stuff for 40 years. So I've seen how cards go run up, and then unfortunately, they have to come back down. That's the unfortunate part. They have to come back down. If you're looking at one player in Major League Baseball who has the potential of being a superstar, I think you're looking at Shohei Ohtani. Although I would really, really caution you to buy Ohtani cards right now because they are overpriced and he has 15 years to play in Major League Baseball. And I don't think he's going to play 15 years in Major League Baseball. I don't think so. I think you're looking at a 5-year time horizon for Shohei Ohtani, which means he's never going to have the stats. He's just not going to be able to do it in 5 years. So you have to understand your sports. Major League Baseball superstars have a 20-year career. Look at Nolan Ryan. Look at all of the GOATs. They have 20-year careers. Mickey Mantle played, I think, 18 seasons. That's my point, is you have to play for a long time. Derek Jeter played for 20 years. 20 years. So my point being is that you have to have longevity in baseball. So if any one of these little guys, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Tatis, any one of them, even Acuna. Now, I am looking at Acuna and Juan Soto because I think they have the potential. I think Juan Soto could be a 500 home run player. That's my personal opinion. I think Juan Soto could be a 500 home run player. I also think if Aaron Judge does not get hurt, Aaron Judge gets hurt. But I think Aaron Judge is now a potential 500 home run player. I think he has really taken his game to a whole nother level, and I think he's legitimately a major superstar in the league. If he hits 50 home runs again this year, I mean, you're talking about a guy who has the power of yesteryear that's playing right now. So Aaron Judge is another player that I would recommend looking at. Now, I'm working on the gold standard. That means the top 100 players that you should be considering for retaining value. And I've always tried to figure out, well, how do I explain why are they the gold standard? And the reason is because they retain value. It doesn't mean that they're going to be the most expensive players. It doesn't mean they're going to be the most expensive cards. It just means that they're going to retain their value. Now, that doesn't mean that you overpaid for their cards. It doesn't mean you could pay anything you want. No. What I'm saying is their name retains value. So I just gave you a couple names from modern era. So Mahomes, Jefferson, Judge, Acuna, Soto. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. If you want to talk hockey, you're definitely talking about McDavid. You're talking about Shesterkin. You're talking about Makar, McKinnon, even Kucherov. These are the stars of today that will retain value into the future. Some of the rookies of a couple years ago, like Kirill Kaprizov, he's gone. Like, nobody cares. And that's my point. Bedard has to prove something. Hey, Jack Hughes is an unbelievable talent, but he's gotten hurt. So the question is, can Jack Hughes play another 10 years? If he can, then I think there's a potential for his name to get on that list, but he's not on that list right now. So that's what I'm working on. I'm doing the research. I'm putting together the gold standard, the top 100 players that you should be thinking about when you're thinking about a retained value PC. Now, that doesn't mean that you should only have those players in your PC. No. Please. When you do a collection, it needs to mean something to you. I talked about that in the behind the scenes. You have to have a philosophy for your personal collection. It needs to mean something to you. I have players that I've targeted. Those players are not on that list. Like Gary Carter is not on the 100 list, okay? Pierre LaRouche is not on the 100 list. He's not a gold standard. His name, nobody's going to remember his name in 20 years. That's not the point. That's not why I'm buying the cards. That's not why I'm collecting those players. I'm collecting them because they mean something to me. And you need to do that for yourself. They need to mean something for you. All right, that's our show for this week. I want to thank everyone for joining me. Wow, I got off on a rant. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe right now because this is the Sports and Sports Variety channel. I do this show every single week. EDI Sports Show. This is Doc saying, have a great weekend.
There's only one show. There's only one show I wanna watch. EDI Sports Show every Friday. From interviews and card news to the sports behind the scenes. Only one show covers the deeds. EDI Sports Show.